the Buccaneers versus the Cowboys. So this game was also challenging for me to pick because I've watched a lot of these two teams. I'm a big Brady fan, grew up a Dallas fan, as you can see behind me. But this one's a challenge because I can really lean either way with this matchup. It's quite frankly because I don't love either of these teams. Their weaknesses are very obvious for me, and their strengths don't match up to the opposing team's weaknesses super well. So I do have a lot of thoughts on the Cowboys versus the Buccaneers, and I have a lot of contrasting feelings. So this game is a real challenge for me to articulate how I feel and really come up with who I feel like will win one way or the other. But one of the major things is it feels like the Buccaneers have the better roster, in my opinion. We've seen the Tom Brady-led Buccaneers have success in the postseason. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. Last season, they beat the Eagles before almost completing that huge comeback versus the Rams last season. But the Buccaneers are also getting healthy in some key spots on the offensive line, which is a big deal. Obviously, when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady, who can't really move, they're getting healthy with their left tackle appears to be coming back to 100%. Their right tackle, Tristan Wirfs, is appearing to come back to 100%. However, there is some concern that the Buccaneers center got hurt against the Falcons last week, but Ryan Jensen, who is, I believe, their all-pro, I believe he was, center last season, he got injured in the preseason. He may be coming back for this game. So that's obviously a big one. But I've spoken at length about why I don't like the Buccaneers the past few weeks, and rather why I don't like the Buccaneers. I've spoken about that before. The Tampa Bay offense has consistently underperformed this season, and I'm not buying into the fact that they've played about 6 or 7 good offensive quarters over the past 18 weeks. That's got to be a concern if you're a Buccaneers fan. Alternatively, if you're a Cowboys fan, they're having some injuries as well. I've spoken about that a little bit. They've had nagging injuries on the defensive line. Their defensive backfield's banged up. Tony Pollard is dealing with a nagging thigh injury. What do we know about Dak Prescott's thumb injury? He's thrown a bunch of interceptions since then. And Dallas, to kind of piggyback on that Dak Prescott interception thing, they've had their fair share of offensive struggles recently. It's well publicized that Dak's throwing a bunch of interceptions right now, so I'm not going to harp on that. But the Cowboys have also struggled running the ball the past 2 weeks. They only had 87 yards rushing against the Titans and 64 yards rushing against the Commanders in that Week 18 blowout. Now, I don't know if that's a blip or a trend, but it is concerning going into a game against the Buccaneers team that's known for having a stout run defense. And then if you're like me, you don't really trust Dak Prescott to be the guy who pulls the team. The team pulls him a little bit, in my opinion. Now, here's my struggle: is it is very easy to look at how the Buccaneers how their starters have played recently. Obviously, that big win against the Panthers, and they went up 10-0 against the Falcons before they pulled their starters. It's really easy to look at how well they played recently and then look at how the Cowboys played against the Commanders. They did not play well, and then just pencil it in as an easy win for the Buccaneers. However, we have seen it happen plenty of times where a team gets embarrassed, they get blown out, and then the next week they come back and play extremely well. That is absolutely on the table for the Cowboys. On top of that, there's also this interesting pattern that the Cowboys have when it comes to losing. They have a literal losing pattern. They're yet to lose back-to-back games this season. So thanks to RJ Ochoa for this. Here's the Cowboys win-loss pattern this season. They lost a game, then they won 4 in a row. They lost a game, then they won 2 in a row. They lost a game, then they won 4 in a row. They lost a game, then they won 2 in a row. And then they just lost a game. So by that, if the Cowboys win 4 games in a row, they will win the Super Bowl. I don't think that'll happen, but it's just an interesting thing to kind of think about. Now, there are 3 things. I'm getting to the point now, okay? I'm dragging this on a little bit. There are 3 things that I feel will decide the football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and 2 of them are fairly obvious, so I will start with the least obvious one. Number 1, the matchup between Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb and Tampa Bay corner Carlton Davis. I am in the camp, and I am of the opinion that the Dallas Cowboys do not have enough weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb, okay? They don't have enough weapons outside of him to really succeed. And Tampa Bay corner Carlton Davis is really good. If he shows up like he did against the Bengals, okay, he pretty much locked down Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase, whether you want to admit it or not, is better than CeeDee Lamb. Carlton Davis versus Jamar Chase looked like this. Carlton Davis aligned from Jamar Chase on 33 of his 40 routes, and Davis limited him to 3 receptions on 8 targets for only 32 yards. I very much think that Carlton Davis will show up in this playoff game just like he did against the Bengals. And then who else are the Cowboys going to throw the ball to? That leads me to my second point. Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles versus Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. So number 2, Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles versus Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach is also their defensive play caller, and his matchup with Kellen Moore feels like a mismatch, okay? So say what you will about the Tampa Bay offense, and I have given them hell all season long. I have not been nice this Tampa Bay offense, but the Tampa Bay defense has consistently been one of the best in the NFL since Todd Bowles has been there. Todd Bowles is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, and it feels like with the blueprint that the Commanders laid out and Bowles' natural ability and natural defensive mind, he has an excellent defensive mind. It feels like we may see the Cowboys offense get stifled like they were week 1 against the Buccaneers where they only put up 3 points. Especially if Carlton Davis, who was able to have an amazing game against Jamar Chase, if he's lined up against CeeDee Lamb, then who do we expect Dak to throw to? So it feels like Todd Bowles is going to be better as a defensive coordinator doing his thing on the defense than Kellen Moore will be able to draw up versus this Tampa Bay defense. So I feel like this feels like a mismatch here. And lastly, probably the most obvious one, number 3, Brady versus Dak. When it comes to teams that are close enough, okay, and I feel like the Tampa Bay versus Cowboys, they aren't super different in terms of their talent level, the overall rosters. It's not super different. I do feel like Tampa Bay is better. But these teams are pretty close. And when it comes to teams being very close, you got to bring it down to the quarterbacks. At the end of the day, I trust Brady significantly more than I trust Dak Prescott. So for that, I am picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a fairly low-scoring affair. I'm going to say Tampa Bay 21, Dallas Cowboys 17.